American values are still around, even on that crazy Black Friday sale. Not everybody was going for the flat screen TV. Some people wanted that firearm.
So now, do you not know for a fact the gun that your wife might be getting you for Christmas, or do you have a do you have a list from which she is able to choose?
We have a whole list from which she's able to choose, and I've already explained to her if she doesn't buy one, that's okay, because I haven't bought my own Christmas present yet. So, I'll be having a new gun here at some point. It's, and it's nice to know that I'm not alone. I also thought about this shortly after the Black Friday sale. I was thinking to myself that maybe it might be that Santa Claus is a Republican as well, or at least a member of the NRA, because I know personally a lot of people who are buying their kids their first gun, at 22 or maybe a 20 gauge shotgun or something like that. And there's this growing sense that that Barack Obama, as bad as he has been for the Second Amendment, might have been the best evangelical for the Second Amendment rights that we have, because people are now starting to look at some of the infringements that have come down in the last few years on state levels and some of the talk that's coming from the federal level, and they're deciding to take this opportunity to go out there and get a gun at half price on Black Friday or during their holiday sales.
Which is, again, as you said, and I think I maybe talked about this on the show a while back, or maybe even wrote about it a bit, but certain events trigger this stuff. We go back to Sandy Hook and Obama's, Howsam, you and I talked about this now that I'm mentioning it. Obama's, well, it's not knee-jerk. These people look for the opportunities. Rahm Emanuel has infamously said, never let a good crisis go to waste. But after Sandy Hook, Obama and the left kicked gun control into high gear. And of course, I think, and Howsam, I remember you laughing when I said this, the first thing they say to us, Michael Schaus, is that we don't want to take your guns away. And that can be translated roughly into, we want to take your guns away. And this is why sales kick up after various things happen. And then again, you see it when you have Ferguson or whatever else going on. Second Amendment folks are, they're very leery of liberals and their ultimate intent.
Oh yeah, and there's a great thing about firearm ownership too, and that's that it's contagious. People who have a gun, people who own a gun, people who are interested in Second Amendment rights, they tend to be the type of person that will talk to their neighbors about why it's important to have a gun in the house. They're the type of person that will explain to somebody why a concealed carry permit's nothing to be afraid of. And before you know it, it starts to grow, especially when you get that talk on the federal level. Here in Colorado, people were talking a while ago about banning high-capacity magazines, and sure enough, they ended up doing it. But right before they passed the law, you could walk into any sporting goods store in Colorado, and they'd be sold out of high-capacity magazines. People all of a sudden realize that, hey, if they're going to be illegal, I need to go out there and I need to buy as many as I can, and I need to tell all my friends why they should go out and buy some too. Exactly. And it's a great system to expand the Second Amendment rights. And look at how many women, for the first time, are deciding to go and look into what it takes to get a concealed carry permit.
Because it just becomes obvious, even with right before, I don't know if you were listening, before even Clavin got on, we were talking about what was going on in Sydney yesterday, of course, and it was just so interesting to see on Twitter the amount of people that were commenting, that Australia has got pretty stringent gun laws. And one thing that would be particularly helpful in a circumstance like this is a bunch of people with a Glock or a Springfield or something like that, semi-auto, shoved in the waistband of their Levi's while something like this went down. I mean, it would be a complete game changer.
How awesome would that have been if some dude concealed carry, that happened here, and some guy took out that bastard? How awesome would that be to hear the left? Try to explain that away, Michael Schaus.
Oh, well, and you can't, what amazes me, you probably read, I think you guys might have even had something about it in the last day or so. There was that Palestinian that got shot after he threw acid at a Jewish family in Jerusalem, I believe. Well, all the news stories said that the Palestinian was shot after he threw acid at this Jewish family. He was shot by a civilian. He wasn't shot by a police officer. He was shot by a guy who was legally able to have his gun on him in Jerusalem. And that stories like that you don't really hear because the media doesn't really want you to hear it. I think the estimate right now, according to John Lott, is somewhere around 2.5 million people per year use a gun to stop a violent crime. That's 2.5 million people that potentially stop a murder, potentially stop an assault or a rape. It makes sense. I can guarantee you right now in Ferguson, Missouri, there are probably a handful of Democrats and liberals who otherwise don't like guns, probably clinging to their shotgun as all the riots are going on outside.
Did you see the story, Michael, by the way, quickly, that we put up on IJR? In fact, maybe I even put it up, but several weeks ago, where once all hell broke loose in Ferguson and the burning down of the businesses started and so forth, the 4 or 5 black guys, legal concealed carry guys, rushed to a white gas station to protect it from burning because they had worked there and their friends had worked there and the guy had been good to them for years. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw that, and I think I actually talked about it on one of my shows because there are so many different parts of that story that we should pay attention to. First of all, good guys with guns saved a business, which I know we all laughed at Wayne LaPierre when he said that, but it's true. Good guys with guns. You don't call the cops because of dashing good looks. You call them because they're good guys with guns. And in this case, you had some concealed carry permit holders who showed up, saved the business. And they also showed up to a white-owned business because they understood that the best way to get out of poverty was by getting a job. They were thankful to this guy for having given them a job and given them an opportunity to make their lives better.
Mike, is this a point that I jump in and explain that the conversation we're having goes outside of the currently accepted narrative in America? I mean, all these things that Schaus is saying is so violating the dominant current America 180 narrative. Do I put in the public service announcement now, or do I let him keep rolling for a little while longer?
I mean, I think we let him keep rolling for a while, but I think when he comes back, we should remind him ahead of time the dangerous path he's treading.
Right. It's funny you were mentioning. Exactly.
I miss that. What'd you say?
So I'll probably get audited. It's okay.
Yeah, oh, there you go. Well, welcome to that club too.
That's the tool of the left these days, of course. So when it was funny you were mentioning using guns to stop crime in those numbers, and as you were saying John Lott's name, I was thinking more guns, less crime. And one of the points that he makes in that book is that part of the reason why you don't hear about significant events like that, when somebody produces a concealed carry gun or uses a gun to stop something, one part obviously is it's outside the narrative, but number two is because if somebody stops something either right after it starts or even before it starts with a gun, it doesn't get significant enough to make the news because the event was stopped before it got horribly newsworthy.
Right. In MSNBC at one point, and this was several years ago, they ran a story saying how they could not find a single mass shooting that was stopped by a concealed carry permit holder. And I want you to think about that for a second. Of course, if there was a guy that stopped the mass shooting, there was no mass shooting. But they just overlooked that for a second. And to me, that was the equivalent of saying, well, there's no evidence that a good reaction time has saved people from getting in car accidents. If you have a good reaction time, and if you dodge the guy that's running the red light, there's no accident to report.
You know what?
That's right. Now, that would be one hell of a study, to sit at an intersection and count the number of accidents that didn't happen because of good reaction time. I mean, that's the same exact thing.
Listen, you guys, quickly. Yeah. We are completely missing the point. We're talking about concealed carry. We're talking about gun laws. Obviously, if that Lindt Chocolate Cafe in Sydney had a simple sign on the door that said "No guns allowed, gun-free zone," this would never have happened.
Right. It's those clearly the gun-free zones are so effective. They stop bullets where a body armor and armed individuals can't.
In midair.
That's why, of course, Mike Bloomberg just carries around the sign that says no guns allowed. He doesn't actually have a security detail or anything.
Well, you know what? Thinking of security detail, we're out of time, and I know I need to let you go. I'm going to put this up on our blog about it because it is such a great article. Speaking of security details, de Blasio's one essential requirement. This story, in fact, I had to read it through twice, man, to see that you weren't actually just being sarcastic. The one thing that de Blasio's guy has to have on his security detail.
Yeah, he wants a black guy on his security detail. Apparently, that's in the interest of looking past race, we're going to make sure that we really focus in on race. And
of all the important
I don't know. I'm
things,
starting to think that liberalism is a contagion. I can't help it.
Oh my God. I mean, I saw that and I'm just like, of all the important things, you're hiring somebody for security purposes because you understand that given your position, etc., there's literally a threat to your health. Right to the top of the list goes melanin content in their skin, not anything else that would actually be of substance.
And Michael, they got to do like in Illinois, the new law is you cannot ask a prospective employee if he has a felony conviction in his background. That is now against the law in Illinois. So I would expect, would you not, Michael Schaus, de Blasio to do the same thing when he's interviewing black bodyguards.
Well, I'll tell you what. If he keeps it up, he might end up having to relax his requirements because the NYPD right now is not a big fan of de Blasio. They told him to stay away from their funerals.
They don't want him to come.
Said something.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know what? I can already tell Miller that Schaus is somebody that we're going to need to amp up the PayPal transfer into his account so we can get him on more because this has been a fantastic ride.
You got to come back, brother. Thank you.
So, Michael, take 30 seconds and tell folks where they can find you, both your radio show and everything else, and then we got to let you go.
You can always find my stuff on townhallfinance.com. You can also go, I've got a website, rightwingimage.com, and that's got all the information for the radio show, anything that I write wherever it's published, and believe it or not, I actually do some right-wing artwork as well. So you can find all of that on rightwingimage.com.
Next time you got to tell us about right-wing artwork.
What's that?
I said next time you got to tell us about right-wing artwork.
Yeah, it's go there, check it out. Well, you'll be surprised. There's a lot of things that make fun of Bloomberg and de Blasio just because that's my favorite pastime.
Michael Schaus, thanks so much for being on, brother. You have a great afternoon.
All right, thank you guys. Take care.
Okay, see you later. Okay, that was a great segment, man. What a great guest to have on.
Yeah, I like that guy. And then Klavan. I mean, this is not a bad Monday show. Well, with the exception that how are we going to top it for the rest of the week, man?
Well, we've got Mark Tapson coming on tomorrow, so that'll be that will get us a bit of the way there. And then on Wednesday, a friend of mine is doing a documentary on veterans that will help us get a little further along. So, Mike, I think we're going to be able to. I'm not sure we're going to be able to eclipse today's show. Jessica just says that we can always talk to her on air.
You know what? Speaking of which, let's do that after the news and so forth, because we have not talked to Jessica for a while, and both you and I did talk to Jessica a hell of a lot when we had our own shows on the old network, as they say.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, take us out, Michael.
All right. Again, this is we're just having a great time, and to do it and let y'all listen is even better. Listen again. The right mics. Mike Miller, Michael Allison. We come back and we'll actually talk about stuff we want to talk about. Don't go away. Do not go anywhere.
This is Vigilant Liberty Radio News from Independent Journal Review for December 15th. The Ready for Hillary Super PAC, or Political Action Committee, formed for